Saturday. It is a Saturday, and I'm live streaming. How crazy is this? I don't ever do this on a Saturday. I'm thankful that you guys were able to get the message out. I don't know if I explained myself really well. This coming week, I am going to be at the VidCon event with, got my volume up over here. Let me shut this down. With TubeBuddy, and I usually do a Monday live stream, and I won't be around this week. And I went, well, that kind of stinks. I wanted to talk about Filmora, and this is my chance to do it. I thought maybe if you guys were around and wanted to do a Saturday stream, and I put a post up, and a lot of you guys said, yeah, let's do it. So we'll see who we have in here today. We'll see what's going on. If it's a smaller crowd, that's okay, because it allows me to talk to you guys more individually, one-on-one, and answer some of the questions that you have. There is a questionnaire that I posted in the description. So if you have some questions you want to feed me, I have multiple screens going. Talented boys, peace. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. So it's hard for me to catch everything in the live stream. So if you say something as a question in the live stream, I may not see it. There's a good chance I won't. So use the form that is down in the description. My pal Ed from Flash in Your Pan, who is an amazing guy, is around. He can help answer some of the questions, point you in the right direction, or post the form if you have problems finding it. Right off the bat, the thing I've been talking about for a while that I want to get to is color correction in Filmora 9. And it's one of those things that I think is something that you guys don't use as much. When I start asking questions like, are you guys using color correction? A lot of answers that I get are like, kind of, a little bit, sort of, or no. And no is tough. No is a tough answer because color correction is so important. It's the ability to take these awesome videos that you have and images that you have and tweak them so they really, really look good. And I think you guys know that my whole mission here is to help you guys not just use Filmora, is to take your editing period, no matter what software you're using, and lift it up and make the content a little bit better. Take it to the next level. Because the vast majority of us are YouTube content creators, and we're all trying to figure out ways that we can make our content stand out, connect with the audience, beat the next guy, right? Beat the next guy. We want to look better than him. So that's one of the things we focus on a lot around here, is how to make this stuff look better. So I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to start showing you how to do color correction in Filmora 9. Use the questionnaire, drop some questions along the way. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, and then I'm going to come back around and we're going to hit some questions and talk about some stuff that you guys have been wondering about. And I'll hit on those things as well. Does that sound good? Yes? All right, let me do this. Let me pull open Filmora for us. And let me share the whole screen so you can see what's going on over here. All right, here's my Filmora screen. You guys are very familiar with this sort of thing. Opening up Filmora 9. And seeing exactly the kind of things that I'm seeing right now is you bring in some footage and you're about to do your project and you have all these options in front of you. And sometimes, even as easy as Filmora is, it's easy to get confused about how to use all the features because there is a lot, no question. But I want to show you this one. I'm going to use some very basic images. Now, it's exactly the same with footage. But I'm going to use images because it's easier for you to immediately see some of the changes in the images other than using footage. But this could be a picture. This could be your footage that you filmed. It all works the same way. And I'm going to say, let's say that this is image of an eye. This could be footage, something you filmed that you bring down into your timeline, right? You left click on it, hold, and drag it down into your timeline and release, and that drops it right in your timeline. I'm going to left click and hold and stretch this out, make it longer. So now I have this eye, right? Look at this upper right. That's a pretty good image. That's a pretty crisp image. And some of you might think, well, that looks pretty good. Like, what would you do from there, Daniel? Because that looks good. But you'll be surprised to find out that you can do quite a bit more. And I'm going to show you some of that. Now, if you bring anything into your timeline, all you have to do is double left click on it, and it opens up all these different controls based around what you're dealing with. If this was a piece of text that I brought down, a title, or if it was a layer, anything I double left click on brings up the details of how to do more with that in Filmora. So really handy trick to know. In your timeline, Double left click, you can see it highlights in green. Can you see around the border of this? It gets highlighted in green, and then the details open up here. Then I have 3 tabs, an image tab, a color tab up in this left, and a motion tab. So what I want to do is in this middle one, I'm going to click on color, and this opens up my ability to control the color. Now, some of you might think, yeah, I've probably seen this. I've played with this. You know, there's contrast and brightness and saturation. Up here, there's also temperature and tint, right? You've probably played with these a little bit somewhere along the line. But what we're talking about today is right here, this advanced tab. Let me see if I get you the upper left screen capture and show you better. This upper left advanced button, that's what's going to open up the really advanced features in Filmora 9 and allow you to do things with your footage that other editing software may not be able to, or even if they are able, other creators aren't using to the way that you could use it. And you can really start making your footage that you may have filmed on your phone look better than the next guy, right? That's our whole mission here. We're trying to make stuff better. We're going to make better content, make it sound better, look better, structured better, come across better, and connect with our target audience. So let's look at right here. We're going to click on that advanced button right there. And that's going to open up something in the center. Let me give you the center screen capture. And this is the advanced color correction. This is what we're talking about here today, guys. Advanced color correction. And there's so many different little buttons here, right, that you go, I don't know what this all does. Daniel, help us. Daniel, help us. Because it looks like a lot. It sure looks like a lot, doesn't it? I'm gonna go back to you guys over here for a second just to make sure we're all on the same page. Doesn't that seem like a lot? Have you guys, how many of you guys, first of all, can you hear me okay? Does everything look okay? Are we doing well here? Thumbs up if we're doing well. Have you guys spent a lot of time playing with the color correction? Do you use it regularly when you bring your footage in and you start doing your editing? Or do you go right for like cutting things up and trying to just get them in order and, dear Lord, let me get through my edit? Because I used to do that too. I would just put things up and go, oh gosh, I hope this works. Wanted Gaming, what's up, my friend? Good to see you. Chat's over here. If I look over this way, it's because I sometimes look over to see what you guys are doing. Burke Makes Stuff, good to see you too, my friend. Yeah, so that is the thing I'm talking about, is that advanced color correction. Let's go back to the center screen capture here. Let me see if I can show you more what we're doing here. So we opened up this center screen capture, right? For everybody who might have just walked in, there was this piece of footage. I double left click on it. It opened up the color tab up here, and I hit advanced. And when I hit advanced, right in the middle, this is where we're into our advanced color correction. All right, everybody buckle in. Buckle in. This is where we're going to learn something fun, because if you haven't used this, this is so amazing. All right, so listen. There's a first section up here. We'll start in this upper left, and it has a section called the histogram. And you go, what is that? Isn't that what my mom used to go to get her uterus checked? That's not. It's histogram checks the balance of colors and sees where they're weighted by just analyzing the image itself, right? So it's looking at the amount of blues, greens, and reds. All pictures, everything you see is made up of 3 basic colors: red, blue, and green. And the amount of each in the picture is what changes the way it looks. That's your whole color balance. So this right here is telling us the overall existing balance of this image. You can see a lot of the colors exist in the lower end, in the darker, because this is kind of a lot of shadows over here on the right. So a lot of the colors exist in the shadows. And then it shows like maybe red is a little bit ahead if you get to this peak. But blue and green, a fairly balanced image. So whoever did this picture did actually a pretty decent job of balancing it out. But there's not one right answer. This is what I want to tell you. It's not like, oh, you get your image to look like one thing and that's it. There's one universal rule for what looks right, and that's what you use. No. Let me show you something. If you're in the advanced color correction, we're going to skip the white balance for now. I'll show you that on another scene. But you can immediately control the temperature, meaning you can make it colder, which will push more blues out, and the entire image will get much more blue. Do you feel that going blue? Can you see how that went blue? And you go, well, why would I want it to be that blue? A lot of reasons. Maybe you're doing something that wants to feel a little more like it's a night scene and you want to push the blues, right? So you bring the temperature much more into the blue zone. Or maybe you have a piece of footage you want it to feel really warm and hot in summer day, and you grab that temperature and you move it the other way and push the reds forward. Suddenly it feels like the sun is shining on this eye, right? Can you see that difference? One little slider. And we went from, oh my gosh, this is a person standing out in the sunlight, staring maybe across a beach, to the opposite of, oh, this is someone, maybe when the sun was setting, maybe they're looking over some like cool water. It changes the whole feel of the way your footage comes across. Temperature, color temperature. I can hit that, I can click right in the middle of, no matter where I put that temperature gauge, guys, if I just double click in the middle, it'll bring me back to 0. Double left click, 0 it out, perfect. Now the tint underneath this is a different thing. It's not an overall temperature. This actually will pull the color scale more towards the green area or more towards the reddish purple area. And it's a different feel. Can you see the difference here? It's not that warmth. It's more about the tint. It's like twisting the colors to lean towards more colors instead of a warmth or cold. It's more about leaning towards more of a greenish area or more of a purple red. And that has a different feel for different reasons. Right now, I'm just going to walk you through some of the change, some of the things you can control. So you go, okay, Daniel, I understand. I understand what that is. Application is a different thing. How we use them is something different. The next thing you're going to find in your advanced color editor is this thing called the 3D LUT. It comes up fast. The reason it's way up here, these are preset sections that you can assign to your footage or to your image. You know, like if you, oh, I'm not really good at color correction, it's really hard. I wish there was just like one button I could click and it totally kind of changed this to make it look a little more like something else. 3D LUT, right here, 3D LUT. Look at these stuff. This is some of the preset stuff that comes right with Filmora. You'll see there's a 007 series. That's talking about trying to make it feel more like a James Bond film. Black and white, B&W film. If you wanted this eyeball that was, say, a piece of footage or an image to suddenly go and feel like a black and white piece of film, click that, boom, black and white. Is it perfect? No. No, we can still tweak it. But it's one of those things that immediately changes it to something else. And if you're using this drop down, scroll back up and hit none, and it'll turn it off. Or you can actually just turn it off by clicking that green check mark, and it'll, you got to remember, in any one of these sections, these green check marks activate and deactivate that portion, which is kind of important because some of these things you might tweak a lot. Like say you were up here playing with this. Remember I showed you the color. We made it very cool. And then maybe we said, oh, I want a little more purple in it. Let's go this way. And you wanted to quickly check, what does that look like based on my original? You could shut it off by just clicking this green check mark, and it goes to off, right back to the original, and then turn it back on. You go, all right, now I can see the difference. I can see what I did. I can see how it's changing it very quickly. So that's super important too, to be able to understand that these sections each have a green check mark, and that's going to activate the thing you did. Okay? So here's our original white balance. We talk about the temperature and tint. The 3D LUT. Really cool presets in here too. Check out this. It's got like Star Wars. Can you see this? Star Wars? You can instantly, with a click, it gives it that old vintagey sort of worn down Star Wars feel, which was very warm, deserty. It was kind of diluted on the top end. They have a warm film effect that will automatically bring out some of the warmth like a vintage film. So this will get more red and more saturated, right? Boom, boom. Look at these huge differences by using these 3D LUTs. Off, and then turn that warm film back on. Boom. Huge difference. Is one right? Is one wrong? No, 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 no. This is all about you figuring out you're trying to create a look, a feel, an effect. Not only for your whole project, but individual pieces. So think about how you can use some of these presets and these 3D LUTs to automatically start going, wow, look what they give me. Harry Potter. Here's more of a Harry Potter feel. Why is that a Harry Potter feel? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Probably because it's pushing some of the blues and grays, and a lot of the Harry Potter stuff tended to get kind of dark and castle-esque. So you can see what it's doing to this eyeball. Not great things for this image, right? This doesn't work great for this one because it's pushing a lot of those castle-y, it's probably, this is feeling like Hogwarts kind of feel, pushing those castle colors. But it may not work for what we're doing, but it's a neat thing to go through and go, oh, I have some options though, right? Gravity, the movie Gravity, kind of stark contrast. Very cool, very cool. I'm going to leave that off for now. Here's where I love to live. I love to live. Let's start with color. So when you'll see each one of these, right, I hope you can see, there is a drop-down arrow, and when you click on that arrow, it opens up all of the stuff within that section, right? So if I click that arrow, it goes back up. If I click it again, it opens up all the pieces underneath. So that expands our ability to go in and do more with each section. Color, light, HSL, vignette. That's what these drop-downs do. Drop-down opens up the menu, and then the check mark activates and deactivates that. Is that making sense? I want to make sure I've got you guys with me so far. Does all of that seem to make some sense for you guys? You can feel, how to get to where I got to. Double left click on your footage, go up into the color tab, hit advanced, and now we're into some of these more advanced features in Filmora where we can really make stuff start to sparkle. I'm going to come over here for a minute. Kerwin, nice to see you. Do I see Launchpad Astronomy out there? Christian, my man. What a great channel he has. I'll be talking more about his stuff in the future. Is there a mobile version? Just came up. Turtle Creativity. There is not a mobile version. There's a mobile version of Filmora called Filmora Go that is nothing like this. This is Filmora 9, and this is a desktop editing software. Filmora also has one called Vlogit that is better than Filmora Go. It's more about capturing instant stuff with your mobile device, and it's free. Vlogit, make a note of that. But in terms of this stuff that we're doing here, this is advanced color correction based on desktop editing, whether that's PC or Mac. I'm a PC guy, but most of this stuff is pretty straightforward. Travel around Holland, good to see you. I'm from New England. Let's get back right into it, okay? Let's do this. No problem with the plug, Christian. Anytime. Your channel's so good that I have to talk about it. Let's get a full screen capture. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to come over here. Let's get back to where we were talking about this eyeball. So like I was saying, right, here's our menus, right? Here's our drop-down menu. Each one of these things has a check mark next to it, and if I uncheck it, we just see the histogram, and we have our menu. And every time we hit this little arrows to the left of it, it's going to the right. If we have it point down, it opens up the subsection, and there's our controls. So white balance is going to be our temperature and tint. The 3D LUT is going to be all those presets like in the movies where it sort of gives us major presets to move the whole thing. This is sort of like, oh, I just want to see if I can quickly get it to look like something. You can go black and white. You can make it look like a Batman film, a cool film, dark film, more like Game of Thrones. That's what 3D LUT does. And I'll dig deeper into that in the future because you can actually create your own LUTs and download some LUTs, and we'll do that more. But let's talk about color. I'm going to click on the arrow to expose color. The very top option is exposure. Now, if you guys don't know what exposure is, it's sort of the intensity, the amount of light that comes into the camera that we can recreate in post. If we limit it and pull the exposure down, can you see the histogram at the top? See how all the colors are moving up here? See how it's moving back? It's pulling all that top end, the brightness, the amount of light that would have been let in way back. So this is an underexposed image, right? It's darker, it's duller. All of our colors in our histogram got pushed way down into the dark end. All the bright top end of it is automatically moving back. And we can move our exposure towards the other end and really brighten up this image. We can actually flood it with light and make it feel like, man, there was a ton of light coming into the point where some of the white started distorting. I've used this intentionally in stuff like some science fiction feeling things. Like if I wanted to feel like there was like something really bright coming at somebody, the sun, a spaceship, anything that, you wanted that really super bright, you can overexpose and go, oh my gosh, this is that feeling of tons of light coming at something, like your eye, any image, anything. Exposure. Below that, you're going to see brightness, which feels like exposure, but it's not. It's the whole thing making it darker You see how much black comes in or how much white. So it's not about how much light is hitting the object as much as it is making the whole thing darker or brighter. Exposure is a slightly different thing. Exposure is more about the amount of light you let on the subject. Brightness and contrast is more like tweaking how much darkness and brightness there is overall on that subject. Contrast is right below that. That lets us really bring in some sharp darkness. You can really sharpen up some of the darkness here. It doesn't get black, but it really defines the difference between light and dark. So these brightness and exposure, contrast really defines how much difference there is between the light sections and the dark sections. So here's a high contrast where you can see the dark sections really start to create lines. If we pull that back, a low contrast would mean the dark and light sections tend to really be fuzzy. There's no real serious definition between the two. And a lot of times when I bring footage in, the first thing I do is I'll start bringing up the contrast, just because the way I capture most stuff with my camera, it tends to be very middle of the road. So I like to pump the contrast, gives me a little more delineation between the lights and the darks. Below this, you're going to see vibrance and saturation. A lot of people never understand exactly what the difference is. Vibrance, I'll look at saturation first. Saturation is just how much color. Think of all the colors we're looking at. Blue, green, red, the black of the eyelash. How much black, how much blue, how much flesh tone is in this image. Saturation is like taking all the colors and jacking them up. So we can pull this to the right and boom, everything gets super sad. We start seeing yellows up in this eyelid. Can you see it? Can you see that? The blues really jump, but it's not, it brings everything up. It's not an individual control. Saturation is like the volume control of color. If you crank it, everything comes up. So a cool thing you can often do when you have a flat piece of footage, you go, let me bring up the contrast a little and let me bring up the saturation. And sometimes that's just enough to go, wow, it's just enough to make it pop a little bit more, right? The vibrance is actually taking the top end of the colors and making them shimmer a bit. So if you crank up the saturation, bring up the vibrance, you're going to start seeing some of the highlights of these really shimmer. And if you take it down, you'll start seeing them dull out a little bit. It's a much softer effect, and you have to be careful with vibrance because it can pixelate. If you just crank it, it starts creating more separation. Again, remember that histogram we looked up at top here, the colors? Always use that as a reference because it'll show you what it's doing with the colors. The vibrance up here, see how it's starting to separate the greens and the blues when we crank that vibrance? Look at this top end of the histogram. The greens and the blues are pretty close. When we crank that vibrance, it starts separating them. It starts pulling them apart. They don't blend as much, right? See this? The peaks are getting pulled apart. Vibrance. And what we're trying to do is every one of these controls is an interesting thing. You can easily make mistakes when it comes to using this, because sometimes you see all these buttons, you go, oh, I'll just turn everything up. And what happens is kind of like my live stream right now, which is a little oversaturated. Everything becomes too much. It becomes too much. And instead of delicately dialing things in, sometimes your gut is, well, just turn everything up and make it loud. Loud reds, loud blues, everything loud. And that's not the answer to most situations. It's not. What you really want to do is try to create an image that works for the mood that you're creating, right? Create that mood. Because some of you guys are out there, let me look who I got. I got Ed, right? Ed's out there doing flash in your pan. Now, maybe he pulls up a piece of footage where he's pulled up a pan. He does flash in your pan. He does gold mining. He's prospecting. So maybe he's got like a shot where he's down in the river and he's got a pan and he's swishing it out and he's got gold flakes in it. But he really wants those flakes to pop in that close-up of him with the pan. So maybe he wants to be able to dial up those gold colors so they really pop when he actually is editing the video so people can see the gold in his pan easier. That's what we use these tools for. That's what we do. Sharpen it up, bring up those colors, make them pop, make your content more interesting so that it really sells the thing that you're talking about, right? And shout out to you, brother. Love you. Let me get back over here and show you what we can move on from there. Center screen capture. Hold on. Let me move some things around. Okay, so where I was here, I was in that color section. This is a very basic area, right? Exposure, brightness, contrast, vibrance, saturation. Very basic overall motions, right? Lower the exposure, raise the brightness, intensify the contrast, bring the saturation up, lose it, take the color right out. You can kill the saturation and you can kill some of the exposure and vibrance and start making it look like black and white. Remember we talked about that black and white feature? When I go to do black and white footage, I actually just use this color drop down, color, because the background in the 3D LUT, remember here I said black, it said B&W film. It's not bad. It's not bad. But it's not as good as if I come in here and take this. This is the footage with the color on. Now I'm with the color off. I've now reduced the exposure and I've killed the vibrance and saturation. Let's turn with that click button. Boom. Now I start feeling more like a piece of black and white footage with more definition. I can control what this black and white footage looks like. Super dark? Brighter? What's the exposure like? Is it super exposed? And I can make some really cool black and white footage and I can control some of these features better. That making sense? Color. This is just color. We're just playing with the color features. Let me move down one. Light. So color is all the color in your images. Light, as I click that drop-down menu here, you're going to see that you have 4 options. Highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. And again, some of that is going to sound redundant, like, well, what's the difference between highlights and whites? And it's really just where it falls. Remember our histogram up here? Where it falls in the spectrum. The whites are going to fall into the upper region. The blacks are going to fall into the lower region. But the shadows are very far down and the highlights are very far up. So it's all about where in the spectrum we're controlling. Filmora is so good at that. We can control so many different areas. If this was a sound, this would be like playing with the equalizer. And if we want the low end up or the mids up, that's what all this does. So let's take a look. Like here's the highlights, right? We can crank up the highlights and just the whitest of the whites get whiter. Or we can kill them and just the whitest of the whites get darker. It doesn't destroy the image. It just talks about very high. And see what's happening with the histogram? Can you see the histogram? Those very top ends are either getting pushed forward and we're flattening it out a bit, or we're going right back to the lower end. Highlights. Shadows. This is going to do the opposite. Watch that histogram. We can either remove the shadow, or we can head heavy shadow this way, or push them forward. Right? So shadows down, strong shadow, or move that shadow line. We're basically moving that histogram, right? So the lowest of the lows, when we move shadows to the right, we're moving the histogram to the right. Think about this histogram like a graphic equalizer for a sound. And this is your music. Do you want the high ends higher or the low ends lower? And think of high like the bright colors and the low like the dark colors. So here in this histogram, we're going, oh, shadows, that's the lowest of the low. Let's move them forward towards that. Super starts to saturate, take a lot of those shadows out. The highlights, that takes the top and starts to highlight it. Now below that, we have the whites, which is the overall. Think of that more of the midsection. Let's push the whites. It doesn't do that same thing as the highlights. It just sort of controls the mid scope of these whites. And the blacks, of course, does the same thing. It starts controlling that lower region, but not the lowest of the low. It just starts taking the blacks in the picture and moving them around. And why these 4 things are important is you can take an image like this. I'm fairly balanced right now, right? And I go, this is pretty decent, but let's say I want it to be a little crisper on top. Let's raise up the highlights. Let's take the shadows down, maybe back a hair so it's got a little more shadow to it. The whites, let's back off, and let's bring up the blacks. Actually, I'm going to take them back. Let me do a more dramatic effect. Let me pull the blacks, and let me push the whites slightly so that the whites of the eye go up. Okay. Now remember that check mark that'll let us turn it on and off? This is where I'm at right now. I've pushed the highlights, I pulled the shadows, I pushed the overall whites, but pulled the blacks. Now you ready? Back and forth. Original, changing the lighting. Original, changing the lighting. And can you see how you can get more dramatic with this? Now maybe, see how much of the white of the eyeball looks dark? Maybe you go, yeah, I don't like that. That wasn't what I want. I don't want that much black. Let me bring the blacks up. And actually the shadows were a little dark. Let me bring that up a hair. Maybe that's more what you want, right? That green check button up here. Boom. Original, lights on. Original, using the lighting, not using the lighting. Go back and forth. That'll show you what your adjustment has done. Super cool. Super cool. Color, lighting. You can do so much with just those two. Just those two. Let me come back to you guys. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Does this stuff that I'm saying make sense? Can you see what I've done? Color, lighting, right? It's a lot of the stuff that we would do before we film. And I always say, listen, learn to do that. Learn to light your footage properly. When you go to film something, try to get some lighting on it. Try to get the colors right. Try to get your camera, even if you're using your phone. I use my phone all the time to film. Try to get some of the balance right. So when you get into Filmora, you're not spending a ton of time just trying to fix what wasn't right. You're trying to take something that was good and make it killer. All right, make it killer. Is that all making sense? Scully, good to see you, my friend. Yeah, so you're playing with that light. So now we know how to do some light and color. Aaron, right? Thumbs up. Let me show you some more stuff you can do. Let me show you some more stuff you can do. This gets even better. This is why I love Filmora. It's even better. Okay, so now you've seen how to control the basic white balance, some of the preset LUTs, the color, the light. Let me turn all those off. This is the HSL, okay? And you go, what's that? Well, it's the hue, saturation, and lighting of individual colors. Filmora goes, okay, like we were doing a lot of overall stuff, right? Back up in the color, we had saturation where we could grab that and turn it on, and we could crank it, right? We could crank it up or we could crank it down, and we could make some decisions on what we want to do. But that was an overall motion. The HSL allows us to start dealing with individual colors. And where this is really important is in your footage or in your images, you can start deciding what you want to boost up without bringing everything else up, right? So like, look at this eye footage, kind of a flesh tone, right? Because of around is the flesh, but the center is more of kind of a blue-green. So maybe you had this and you're like, man, it would be so cool if this bluish green was really popping. So you go, all right, perfect. Let's turn on the HSL and let's see if we can find those colors and make them pop. This is kind of a lighter blue, right? So I have some purple, blue, and lighter blue. Let's go with the lighter blue. And you'll see those three options. They call it luminescence. It's lightness. Hue, saturation, luminance, HSL. Let's take the saturation right off the bat and crank it. A lot of times the way I make corrections is I crank something as big as it can be. Now let me change the hue to see what it does. Ooh, did you see that move? Are you seeing the blue move in that eye? The hue over here is down in a green. So it's grabbed that color and I've cranked it. And I said, okay, let me see what it looks like when I go green. Let me head more towards this bluish purple. Too much, right? It starts looking unnatural up there and a little too green down here, right? It's too unnatural. But let's find that middle ground of that blue. Where was that blue? Maybe here. And now that I know I've dialed in the frequency of blue, let me pull it back. I cranked it so I could see it better. Now, if I pulled it out, I can make the eye almost look a little more gray. I can take the blue out of it. So you can do both things. You can crank it or pull it out. Individual color frequencies. I want this a little more blue, so I'm going to post up those. Let me push up that blue a little bit, that baby blue. Not all the way. I cranked it so I could see it better, but then let me dial it back to something more natural. And I can even pop up the luminescence. You can see that. I'll make it a little brighter or a little darker. And you can kind of decide which works better for what you're doing. Do I want less brightness to that blue? Because maybe it works better if it's a little more intense, darker. Because here's wide open, right? There's luminescence wide open, but it's almost a little washed out, right? Like the sky on a sunny day. Let me pull it back. I get more definition, I think. So let me pull the luminescence back. More blue, less luminescence. Gotta get more distinction that way. But you do have more than one band to deal with. Let's go over to this. It's more like a purple blue. Let me crank up the saturation again, right? What I tell you, the best way to figure out how to do something, crank it up and then start dialing in your color. Oh, look at that. It goes to purple and it goes all the way down to greenish. See how it gets weird down here, like alien green on this? That's just so you can crank it up and figure out what am I working with. Kind of like this blue right in here, right? That helps me dial it in. Look at that blue. That's kind of cool. I don't want to leave it cranked there. I cranked it so I could see it. Now let's dial it back. Let's get it out of her eyelid and stuff. That was a little too crazy. She looks like she's crying blue blood here. Kind of cool, kind of cool, kind of cool. I'm actually seeing a little too much in this eyelid, right? See that little blue spot? I'd probably go, did I go too heavy here? Maybe I need to dial that back just a touch. Purple, you can actually do the purple because it's in the same scope. I can dial that back, crank it up, and see if I can do something cool in here. Bring up some of the luminescence. That's on the tail end of that spectrum, so you don't see as much change. The reason we're not seeing as much change here, there's not a lot of purple in this picture, right? There's not. So me changing it, because I'm dealing with one band of color, I'm out of that particular spectrum. It's not really in this footage. But one thing I can do is like, all right, kind of got the blues kicked up a little bit. I kind of like that. That was cool. Kind of kicked up here was kind of cool. But it's almost a little too blue. I can go back and like, let's look at some of these other colors. Look at this is more of a flesh tone, this tannish color. Let's crank up some of the flesh tone. Let's warm that up a bit. Let's crank it and see where that hits. Right, look at, ooh, goes to red and up to green. It's too much in that, right? So maybe somewhere in the middle. Kind of a glowing warmth. That's kind of cool. Let's not crank it too hard. We don't want to make it unnatural. And let's bring it up a hair. But maybe there's some reds in there too that we want to crank. Let's crank that up and let's see what the reds do. Can you see? Boom, reds to green, reds to like a purple. Look at the hue. I'm changing just one band of color. Can you see above the eye how that gets purple? It's picking the reddest of the reds, that one narrow bandwidth, and it's letting me play with it. The reason I crank the saturation is it lets me see what I'm using, what I'm correcting, what I'm playing with. So crank it and put it where you like it. Maybe I want that less green and a little more of a, right in there, right? Kind of a brownish tone. Then pull the saturation back. Don't leave it there. Just get it to where you want it. All right. Now what I've done is I played with some of the individual frequencies. You can do yellow. You can do all of them. You can play with any one of these. You can bring the luminescence up, right? We talked about that. That one we brought down. Maybe this luminescence, we want to crank a little more blue in that particular blue. Let me show you something cool. Now, I showed you that right here, you can click this on and off, that check mark, right? That'll turn it off. And it's a very slight difference because all the colors I pushed were in the eyeball. So you'll see they go like it's not a huge change. It's all of a sudden the eye just gets more blue. Can you see that? Look right in here. Look right in here. This is it on, off. Back on. See how the blue came up? We just grabbed a few frequencies and made it pop. Now up here in this right-hand corner, see this AB button? Click on that. You can do a side-by-side view. Before, after. Really cool. Love this feature. So I can do things and I can see real time what my changes are doing, right? So let's get out of I'm going to just close that down. Let me open up the color and let me reset some of the settings so you can see it real time. This is super cool. Let me activate. It's not being my friend. Not being my friend. Let me pull that back. I'm going to kill some of the contrast. Let me flatten all of these out again. All right, so here's the color option. Now, real time. This one on the left is your original. And this is the one we changed some of the HSL, the hue, saturated, and lighting, right? Let's bring up the overall saturation. Boom. Look at how crazy that gets, right? See those individual frequencies we pushed? Now it's really popping. Now this eye has got all kinds of stuff popping in it. Look at the blues pop. Or we can pull them out. We go the other way. We can go the other way. We can dull it out. But this is how you can take those individual things and go, wow, I'm making some real subtle tweaks that this blue eye is suddenly way more cool blue. Like this is super cool, right? How much cooler is the blue in that one? Maybe I want to make it even more bright, right? Maybe I want to open up the exposure on this one. Look at how that really starts to, it almost looks like, now it looks like there's a sunbeam coming down, like this eye is looking out towards like a sunset or a sunrise. You can create so much mood by doing this stuff, right? A simple eye, something you may have filmed indoors. You can go, I want to make this look like I was looking over a sunset because I filmed the sunset, then I did a close-up of my face, but I want to feel like I was watching the sunset. Do it this way. Do it this way. Boom. Color correction. We're not even done yet. That's just some of it. Is that cool? Is that stuff you guys have tried before? Little tweaks. You can actually take the picture in individual sections. The color, the lighting, the saturation, the luminescence. And I'm doing this with one picture. One picture. You can do so many changes that you could take your footage from your camera. Just take your iPhone, your whatever you're using, your Android phone. You can go out and film, just get a decent piece of footage, and you can go, I'm going to make this look really cool. I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to play with it, and I'm going to really do something cinematic to make people go, how did you film that? It's so beautiful. And you'll be like holding up your phone going, yeah, I filmed it on my phone. And they'll be like, seriously, how did you do that? Fall. Let me go back in here. I want to show you one more thing here, just so we can get through this section, main section. Hold on one second. The whole screen capture. All right, transition. So you can see what we've done so far. We've gotten through the light. We've gotten through the color. We've gotten through the HSL. One last thing I want to show you, Vignette. I'm going to leave the HSL and the color on. Okay. Vignette. You guys know what Vignette is? Vignette is the ability to control the shadows of the outside of your image. And it's a thing that's almost like it's done to control and frame the shot. I'm going to turn on Vignette. And you're not going to see any change yet, but I want to show you amount. You can go darker and lighter. Let's see if you can see this out. Watch the image on the right. When I go left, do you see the corners? Watch each corner. See how it's starting to close in on the corners? The corners got dark. See that right one? Corners got dark. How cool is that? How cool is that? Let me give you full screen on this one just so I can disable. You can see exactly what this is doing. See that vignette? Go to the left. It's going to bring the corners in and frame it almost like looking through a pair of binoculars almost, right? Makes this like circle, closes in the corners. If you go to the right, you can actually lighten it. It'll actually get lighter. So it pushes all these up into super highlighted areas. I love the dark one. I don't use the light one quite as much. For me, I tend to use the dark one because watch what happens. Like in this image, right? Here's this eyeball. I really want to draw focus to the center of this eyeball, right? I want to go like, this is where I want everyone to look. But it's pretty bright around the corner. So let's add a vignette. Let's add some darkness. But that's weird. It almost looks like someone just painted the corners black with like a rattle can of spray paint, like a primer. Forget that. The next option you have here is size. And you can control how big that circle is, right? You can go way in, or you go to the right and it opens it up. There's your vignette. You're controlling that vignette size, okay? Another thing you can do underneath that is roundness. How round do you want your vignette? Do you want it like an oval or more like a circle, right? That almost looks like looking through a periscope, right? You could use this effect on, wow, I'm looking through like a binocular, a periscope. You could use the same effect. But I tend to use this just to clean things up and draw the attention in. So I like this sort of oval shape. And then the next thing you'll see is this feather. And what you're going to see how this goes from black to the color to the actual image. Feather will blend that more. So more feather. It looks like the circle is opening up. It's not. It's just feathering it. So it's not such a harsh transition. Now all of this area goes from color to black more smoothly. If I remove the feather and I dialed it back, now it's a dead circle, right? This looks like a mask. It's just a perfect circle. Feather is going to blend all of that and make it blend out, 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 out. So you just get that little bit of darkness around the edge. And then the exposure overall, as you saw some of this before, we can change the exposure of this image. Let's dial the exposure back a bit. Let's pull the size of this in. Let me see if I can take some of the amount back. And let's just see if we can get it to focus a little more on the eyeball without making it completely black. Can you see what I did here? This is not a huge effect. The ability to use effects effectively, not turn them up to 100. Let's do that A/B testing, right? Let's put on the side by side. Can you see? We've dialed up the color on the right. The left is the original. The one on the right is we dialed up the color and we put a little vignette on it, which made the outside edges that were a little bit brighter. We pulled some of the attention back from there, right? And you can play with all that size and however you want to move it out. It just takes some of the edge lightness away and puts more of the attention dead in the middle. I love using that. I use it very subtly all the time, and you'd never know it's there because now you're looking at, see, this is your first image we started with. That's how we tweaked it. The blues pop more. There's a bit of a sunlight feel. We've taken some of the outside edges and put a vignette on them, so it draws the focus right in on that main center point, which is that bright blue eye. How cool is that? How cool is that? I love doing this stuff. That is how you make it happen. Dan, my boy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dan Tanner. How you doing, pal? Good to see you. Thank you so much for the super chat. I love that. I appreciate that, man. You know you don't have to give me money, but I do appreciate it when it happens. Dan's a guy I've worked with in the past where he's got more than one channel now. The guy's got more channels than I know. But great guy, great creator. Not only does tech, but does music. What's not to like? Got to give you a big shout out for that super chat, my man. Check out his channel. Definitely worth checking out. So this is that color correction. And you don't have to do it to everything. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll bring my footage in, right? I start with my piece of footage I filmed. I go in, and before I edit anything, one big long piece, I'll color correct it. I want to show you one more thing before I forget, because this is super important. Whole screen capture. Let me get you over here so I don't forget, because this is super, super important. Let's say you do all of these changes, right? You do all of these changes. You've done all these little tweaks like I did. Let me get to the center here. Center screen capture. And there you go. Down here, see where it says Save as Preset? If you click on that, you can add it. Let's call this Daniel's color correction. All right? And then you just hit OK. It will now save every one of those things I just did. And if I put OK, it applies it to this particular piece of footage, right? But let's say I brought down a different thing. You know, maybe it was a different piece of footage, like this guy on the skateboard. And I wanted to apply, I'm going to crop him to fit to get rid of the black lines around him. I wanted to apply the same thing. I would open up I'm going to not move too fast here. I double left click on the skateboarder. It opens up the advanced features. I click on the color tab because there's 3 tabs, right? Image, color, and hold on, let me make sure I'm showing you this whole thing. Okay, so I brought down the footage. I double left click on that new piece of footage. Up in the left, you have 3 choices: image, color, and motion. We're working with color, so we click on the color tab, then we click on advanced again. Okay? Now we're right back to the color screen. I save that last thing as a preset. If I go up in this left, let me see if I can focus in a little closer, center screen capture. Can you see that has a preset right here? Click on preset, and there's a drop down. There's a bunch of preset ones, but custom is where your presets will live. Click on custom, and here's Daniel's color correction. I click on that, I click OK, and it applies the exact same color correction I did for this piece over onto this one. It just automatically puts it in there. It makes it nice and easy. And that's all preset, and I can add it anywhere along the line. So, and you can do that for any one of them. You can create multiple presets so that you're not stuck going, oh, each one I have to go back in and save the numbers or the way I did it. Just save it as a preset and go. I do this a lot when I'm filming in here. Like sometimes I'll film and I'll go, all right, I've got the light set this way. I know that in my studio area, one light, the color's on. This does well for color correcting me. And I'll save a preset like Daniel's Studio. And then I'll just apply it. And then I can tweak it a little bit because sometimes it's daylight, night, there's a little more natural light leaking in. But that allows me to now have all these presets that I can use at any time, right? Or if I bring in more footage, if you're working on a project and you've got multiple clips and you go, oh, I want to use that cool that lighting preset that I did, that huge color correction. Let me save my color correction, and I'm going to put it on this one. Boom, simple color correction. Use this. You're going to be shocked at how much better your footage looks just by color correcting it. Color correcting it. So important. Did we talk about the real white balance? I want to show you. Can I show you one more thing in color correction before I get to the questions? Is that okay? Yes? Let's do one more thing because I want to show you this. It's really important. A lot of you guys know that I use a white card. I don't know if I've shown it to every one of you, but there's a I'll show you in a minute when I come back out. There's a you can actually buy a card that you hold up that is pure white on one side and 18% gray on the other. And if you use that, it allows you to do instant white balancing. I'm going to delete some of this stuff. I just want to, what am I doing here? Hold on, here. Let me delete all this stuff. Let me go back to the beginning. I'm going to bring down the skateboard. It'll really show you what I'm talking about. I bet you I can do it right with him. Let's look at the skateboarder. I'm going to crop to fit, so up in the right, it fits. This is an image I got off the pixabay.com. It's a pretty good image. It's been worked. It's been tweaked. He's got enough white in here that I can do this. It's much better if you film and you have a white card you can hold up for this feature, but he's got enough white in his socks and stuff in his shoe that I can do this. Watch this. Watch what I do. So here's an image. I'm going to take this down in the main timeline, stretch it out, double left click, and this will open up my color selection, right? I haven't gone into advanced yet. I'm up in here. You can see just my basic settings. Up here, the first thing is white balance. Let me see if I can crop in so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Here's the upper left screen, right? White balance. I've got the white balance on, but everything is at 0. If I click on this eyedropper, it'll give me a plus sign. See how it turned into a plus sign? If I go over to the other screen, let me give you the full screen. Let me see, whole screen capture. So I clicked on this eyedropper. Let me go find what I think is white. And I think right here in his shoe is the whitest spot. What this is going to do is when you're trying to white balance an image, how do you know how much is too blue? How do you know how much is too green? How do you know how much is too red? If you can tell Filmora what white looks like, because white, all the colors are made up of red, green, and blue, it can figure out the rest. Watch this. I'm going to use this tiny bit of white at the bottom of his shoe right here. And all I'm going to do is take that plus sign and click on it and watch what happens to this image. Boom. Do you see how the sky went much more blue than green? Did you see how that changed? Let me just do this. Let me go upper right. I'll show you it even more intense. That is with the white balance on. That's what it off. So you see how it's very green? This was the original image. And all I did was I clicked and I gave it white balance. I gave it a source to recognize what was white. If it knows what white is, it can figure out how much red, green, and blue should be in this picture. Boom. Suddenly the sky gets more blue. Suddenly all the colors start cleaning up. That is super important. Super important. If you can use a white card and get the white balance, it's like a starting point right from the bat where all the colors in that histogram are better balanced. And that's a huge one. I use it all the time. There's been a couple of videos on my channel where I've showed this thing. I bring this with me in my kit wherever I go, right? So when I go to film, I have this. I have links in my channel. I'll make sure somewhere in the replay I'll post the link to where you can get one of these. It's just a white balance card. This is a portable one. It's under, I think it's like 10 bucks, right? It comes, it folds up, and it pops out. White, 10% gray. When I start filming, all I do is like I step up to my mic, I have the camera, I got it filming, and I'm like, I got my lighting right, and I just hold this up, and I go white, and I'll flip it, and I'll do gray. And then I'll put it away. And then when I am in editing, you'll see me in my footage, and when it's up in my corner, I click here. Because this tells Filmora what white is, what white really is. So it's not guessing. Because white could be anything. Right now, look, I can see in my live stream, this is kind of washed out. This is not pure white. This guitar isn't pure white. It's a cream color. If I do this, it'll correct. Click, boom, it knows what white is now. It knows what white should be. Even if my footage, this looks a little gray or a little green, it knows it's supposed to be white. So click here, it makes this white, and all the colors come into balance. 18% gray, a neutral gray, is a very specific one too. Sometimes you're dealing with footage that has a lot of whites in it. Maybe you're out snowboarding. So it's got snow, it's got sunlight, and it's so much white, like kind of here. See how I'm kind of washed out today? I might use the 10% gray. Because if I click here, it goes, the whites are so washed out and it's a little overexposed, the gray might be more helpful. So having a white balance card when you film, huge, huge. Then you can go right into Filmora, click that, it levels everything out, it's balanced to start with, then your tweaking is so much easier. It gets that histogram to level out. Super cheap, Amazon, white balance card. Definitely worth the money. I'm gonna go over here for a minute now. 48 watching. Hey, I'm surprised we have so many people here today. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope this makes sense. Matt Guzman, nice to see you. Tarun Donnie, nice to see you. Burke already said hi. Aaron said hi. Jay, always a pleasure to see you too, my friend. I want to look at some of the questions we have. Let's see what we had come into the questionnaire. Coming over here, individual. Ask Daniel a question. Hello from Romania, from Andre Ivanescu. I wanted to ask, is it possible to create an animated timetable, for example, trains in a train station or airport? You can do that. You can do that, like an entire different one that they're all moving and flipping. I think you guys have seen me do this. On my channel is a video about inserting a clock, a timer. I screen captured it from somewhere else and I inserted it. You could do that with a timetable. You could do 12 of those. All you have to do is screen capture something and you can insert it as a different layer, one over the other. Even in a blank screen. Put a whole bunch of lines and each one is different. And you could animate them yourself. So anywhere you can find the individual animation. You guys want me to show you how to do that, the overlays? I know I've done it in a video, and I don't know how many of you guys have seen me do the overlays before. I can do it if you need me to show you, but some of this stuff, if I have it on a video, I'd much rather go check out the video because I spent so much more time really showing it, and sometimes it's a little easier because here it's, you know, I'm answering questions, but some of those are much more in-depth and really show you how to do it. Pixels Above, good to see you. Chicks with Dixon, always a pleasure. So yes, you can do anything you want to insert. Think about if you capture anything. I went to Google and I just captured a timer running. I brought that into Filmora. I used the crop and zoom feature and cropped it down so it was only cropped into the one section I wanted, and then clicked on it in the upper right preview and shrunk it to where I wanted. So I had a little timer going. You can do that. I could have made 9 of those in a row, stacked up, each one differently, each doing different things, moving at different times. And that would have created just like a bus sign where each thing might have been changing and updating. Absolutely. Where is that video? The video was called How to Insert a Timer on my channel, and I'll make sure I link to it at some point. But if you go onto my channel, How to Insert a Timer in Filmora, it shows exactly how to take moving things that you can capture from Google or from another screen. It's just using screen capture. Capture them, shrink them, resize them, and lay them right over. So I could put a timer up here. I could put many things in a row, however you want to use them. But the trick is capturing it and then putting it over your main footage. So if I stood next to a whiteboard sign and went, all right, well, there's my pretend airline schedule or bus schedule, I could insert 9 or 10 other things under it and have them all moving. And they're just different tracks of individual lines of motion graphics. But we can go, if you ever need me to go into that more, because I think I covered that, I'm going to leave that one for now because we do have a bunch of questions. I want to make sure I cover them. Next question. Let's see. One-Eyed Blind Media. Any new tutorials for intros like the Marvel intro coming? Jessica Jones, maybe. It was funny. We were talking at the beginning of this chat about Stranger Things. Oh my God. Are you guys Netflix Stranger Things fan? Oh, it's so good. The 3rd season just came out and I binge watched like the whole thing over the last couple of days. Like I didn't sleep. I just watched it. But we're talking about doing the Stranger Things intro. It's a very 80s, 90s Spielberg-esque kind of thing. Reminds me of like the old E.T. movie and stuff. We're thinking about doing that one. Any kind of intros and stuff. I've got a list of stuff. When I say list, it's so long that people have asked me. And what I tend to do is if I start noticing that more people are asking for something more often than other things, I put them higher on the list. So if there's something you want to see for intros, I'm definitely doing more intros. I think Stranger Things would be cool. Jessica Jones wouldn't be bad. You know, Marvel, it's sort of the Marvel thing was such a big process for me. I spent a lot of time on it. That Jessica Jones is cool. But if you see one that's cool, we did the map animation from Indiana Jones. Yeah, definitely going to be doing more. But I get a feeling some of the Stranger Things, because it's hot right now, that we could all take advantage of it and work it into our videos and be like, man, people would relate to that, right? So that's a cool one. Absolutely. Let me see what else we have for questions here. The other questions we have, next question is number 3. I'm banana crazy. Can you motion track? If not, is it possible to show us something similar? I'm going to need to do a full video on this, but I want to show you something just really quickly, okay? I'll try to give you an idea. Motion tracking is not possible in Filmora. And what I'm banana crazy is asking, like, if this was a video of me and I'm moving, right? Could you take something, put it over my face, click a button, and have it follow no matter where I went? No, no. Premiere Pro does that. Some of the higher end ones, video editing software does that. Takes a ton of processing power. So there is no direct motion tracking feature, which is something that people have been asking Filmora about forever. And Filmora is aware of it. They're trying to figure out if they can figure out the way to get it into the software effectively so it doesn't, one, raise the price through the roof, and two, shut down half the computers out there that have been using it. Because the more you have Filmora do, the more resources from your computer it needs. So it's a balance. They've always tried to be a software that does a lot but doesn't overwhelm your computer. It's supposed to be fast, easy. So there's a balance that they always try to maintain. And this is a tough one. But I got a feeling in the future we might see something. But let me show you if you wanted to try to recreate that, you could. You could. And let me see if I can give you a quick idea of what that might look like, okay? I'll do my best. I hope that this will make sense for you. So let's say this is your Filmora project. Let me see if I can find some kind of piece of footage where I might be moving around. And this was my dolly zoom tutorial that I did, all right? So here's my footage. Let me see if I can get over to here somewhere. What you would need to do, like clearly I'm pretending to talk on the phone, but my face is moving a little. Let me see if I can find where I'm moving. That's where I slid backwards, right? Let me see if I can get a better piece where I spin. Okay, I'm kind of moving here, right? So what you would do is stretch this is a little tricky, stretch it all the way out. I am left clicking, see the scale up here? I'm left clicking, holding, and pulling to the right. That stretches it all the way out. What you would do is stretch it all the way until it wouldn't stretch anymore and slice this frame by frame. So right here I'm slicing, I can move to the next frame, put another slice. I can move to the next frame by either clicking and putting a slice, or I can hit the right arrow on my keyboard, it'll move it over one, right? And then Control B will also slice. So there's different ways to do this. But I'm gonna go through, right? This is what I'm doing. Let me see if you can see lower left. Let me give you this a little more close up. In the lower left, I am slicing this footage into smaller pieces right now. Literally as small, frame by frame as I can. What you could do is then go back and you could find an image, and let me see if I can import something. What do I have? There's got to be something. What am I doing? Let me find. All right, here you go. Smiley face. Here's a smiley face. If I brought this down, I would bring it into a track above, right? So it overlays, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut that down. I'm going to highlight this track right here. I'm going to slice it, and I'm going to delete the second half. Now I have one smiley face over this frame. Can you see that? Here's the track, sliced up, and there's a smiley face. Let me give you full screen so you can see a little bit better of what I'm doing overall. So now I've got this smiley face, right? Let me go back because right now the playhead is after it. Let me go where it is. I'm going to lock the main screen down in the lower left, hit that lock button. Up in the upper right, I'm going to click on the screen and I'm going to shrink it. And let me just, suddenly I'm the smiliest guy in the world, right? Here I am, Mr. Smiles. I can then advance one frame. Now I can either right click on that, copy, and paste it back in to give me the same thing. And then I could adjust it slightly if my head moved. Oops, make sure I'm undo that. Make sure I have to do the right frame. I have to move the right frame. That's another thing you have to be worried about. Here's the main frame. Let me click on the next piece of footage. Highlight it up here and let me move it a little bit. All right. I can move ahead one more frame. Paste again. I have to scroll back so I can see that one frame. Make sure that this is highlighted because I'm using individual frames. Whichever one is highlighted is the one I'm moving up in the right. I now have 3 frames of smiley face. I want to move the third one. I have to double left click, activate it, and then move that one. So then if you were to look, you'd go, okay, you went from here to here to here. Now, I don't know if you can see that. I'm going very slow. I've only done frame by frame, moving this. Can you see the smiley face moving slightly? I'm doing a very imperfect job of that. But that is the way that you would recreate screen capture. Is literally take that thing frame by frame and move it around. So if my face went way to one side, then frame by frame, you'd bring that over with it. Very painstaking. It's slow. I've done it. And if you don't do it part, you have to tweak, because all of a sudden sometimes it's jittery. But you can recreate motion tracking that way. It can be done. It's really cool if you only have like 15 or 20 frames. It's something fast, and you just wanted to do like a laser blast out of a gun or something, and you wanted to have it shoot across the screen. You can like track it. You can also do a lightsaber effect that way if you had something and you had to take the glowing rod and layer it over the fake, hold a stick, a broom handle. You could do that and put a glowing rod in each frame, realign it one by one, and have it track and recreate that motion capture, motion tracking feature. It's slow, but it can be done. That makes sense? I hope that made sense. It is tricky. It is tricky, I will say. I hope someday they'll get to the point where you can have one frame and 10 frames later, you readjust and it fills in the middle. Because that's what motion tracking does. Real motion tracking fills in the gaps and realizes what happened in between. With Filmora, you have to do it frame by frame by frame by frame. But you can do something really cool if you're doing it if it's only 30 frames. You can do something really cool that like people go, how did you do that in Filmora? You're like, yeah, I have the hidden motion tracking feature that you don't know about. But it's painstaking. Let me look back at some of the questions over here. Question number 4. John, Daniel, keep up the great work. Will Filmora ever go to an optical flow like Final Cut Pro? That works great for slow-mo. I don't know. Final Cut Pro is great, but it's a Mac only. It's a more advanced feature. It would be great. It would be great to have. It's kind of not too different from what we were just talking about. But again, Filmora is super affordable. Even like I have discounts on my channel. You can get a lifetime license for like under $50. Lifetime. I mean, how can you argue? So sometimes the questions that get asked about Filmora, that's not what Filmora's job is. It's trying to live in a space that's affordable. You don't need a $3,500 computer to run it. And it does a lot of the basic stuff that you want it to do. And my job here is to show you how to get more out of it, right? Squeeze the juice, see if we can do things that people didn't think you could. But no, I don't think it's ever going to get to, it's never going to compete against Final Cut Pro. The same way that Final Cut Pro is a little shy of Adobe Premiere Pro. I mean, Adobe just has a little more to offer. And Final Cut Pro is really good. But Adobe Premiere kind of owns that space. But it also, you can spend $150 a month and you need a $3,500 computer to run it. So those advanced features come with a price. So just figure out what's the right one for you. I use Filmora because this is what I do most of the time, right? I'm doing tutorials, we're having fun. If I needed to make a movie, probably wouldn't use Filmora, right? If I was going to do a short film, I mean, I might do it with Filmora to show you I could, but realistically speaking, if I wanted to do something really advanced, I would use a higher end software and use my higher end 4K editing computer to make that happen. So just think about what tools you need and what you're trying to accomplish. Next question, number 5. From LAJ Footy. Do you like Final Cut as well as Filmora? Yes, I do. Just said it. Great software. Great software, except it's only for Mac. You have to have a Mac computer, but it's great. It's really great. Nothing against it. If that's the right one that you like, if you got a Mac, Final Cut Pro is a great way to go. Especially if you've been using, like if you came into Mac and you've got a strong computer and you've used iMovie, that's a good way to go. Jump up to Final Cut Pro. It doesn't crash as much as Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere does. So Final Cut Pro is it's a good piece of software, really good. Jamma Greek Crew. I have an older model MacBook Pro and I really want to use Filmora, but every time I try to install it, I was having trouble getting it to work. Any suggestions how I can get it to work? P.S. Love your work. Peace, brother. Peace. Peace to you. Yeah, I do have a video on my channel that is about lag. It depends on what your older model MacBook Pro is. I've said this many times. One thing that you have to understand is that any editing software has system requirements. okay? That means it doesn't matter if it's Filmora, if it's Final Cut Pro, if it's Premiere Pro, if it's HitFilm, if it's DaVinci Resolve, Lightworks, a Blender, you name it. Every one of them, Movavi, VSDC, they all have requirements. And I want to make sure you understand so that each one of them works a little differently. And some of them can do more, but they need more. They need more. Think of it like cars, right? If you have a Toyota Corolla and you have a Corvette, is one a better car? Depends what you're doing. If you want to bring 3 of your friends out for the night so you can go have a night on the town, Corvette's a pretty crappy car for that, unless you want 2 of them sitting on the roof, right? 2-seater. But if you wanted to go from your house to the bar at 100 miles an hour, the Corvette might be the better car. So think about what it is you're trying to do, what you want your editing software to do, because it's all very different. A lot of people make this mistake too. A lot of people go out and they buy gaming computers thinking this is going to be the best computer to edit with. No, they aren't. They're actually very different. Gaming computers do one thing really well. They are like a race car, because they usually have to dealing with one game, up, down, load speeds, really fast, really, really high resolution footage, and doing it very quickly. One thing really fast. Editing computers are more like a fleet of trucks. They need to do many things, not super fast, but they need to do each thing in different orders, right? Each different piece of footage, each different effect. It needs to continuously allow one thing to do what it's doing without having the next thing slow that one thing down. And a lot of gaming computers are very linear, like a race car. So it has to go here, do that, come back, come back, come back, come back, do that, come back, do that, come back. Whereas an editing computer does a lot of things at once without, like a fleet of trucks all making deliveries and coming back. They can do it all at different times and nothing gets slowed down by the other delivery. That's the multifunction, the many cores, many threads, higher processing speed allows it to do a lot. Something to think about when you're trying to figure out the right computer. In every editing software, you can go to the website and it will show you what the specs are. It'll tell you. Filmora has one. I posted 1,000,000 times in the comments that what you need in order to run Filmora, right? And there's different specs. And if you want to run higher resolution footage, if you're going to try to edit in 4K, you're asking that editor, no matter what it is, to do more. The more you ask it to do, the harder it has to work, the harder your computer has to work, and the more likely you're going to run into issues. So just consider that in no matter what you're doing, because you have to be reasonable. You have to be reasonable. If you have an older MacBook Pro, whatever you want to run, make sure that it's meeting the system requirements. And if it does and it's still crashing, make sure you check out my Filmora lag video on my homepage. It's in the videos tab too. And it will show you tricks on how to set Filmora up using the GPU acceleration, you can dial back the resolution of the preview screen, and you can set the preferences in a way so that it's not asking Filmora to do so much every time it's running. Good way to get around some of those issues. Ask it to do less, it'll perform better. Question number 7 is El Jefe. Jeff, how you doing, brother? I like saving custom color correction presets for different lighting situations. Yes. Indoor, outdoor, softbox, indirect. Also, the stock presets are good for a starting point that you can really make your own with some minor tweaks. So Jeff is saying, Jeff's got a great channel, El Jefe Reviews. He's a Filmora user, and exactly that. If you can preset some things, if you're doing redundant filming, like if you're always me and you're always in the same spot, or if you always film in one area or 3 areas or 6 areas with similar lighting, or if you're outdoors or some is indoors, you can have those presets in your color correction to go, this works well when I'm outside with this camera. Set that as a preset. So it gives you a good jumping off point. So you don't have to start from scratch. You can learn and save. The whole thing we do with Filmora is trying to increase our workflow speed, get things done faster. So any way that you can save something and come back to it and have some of the details already worked out from a previous session, I know this works really well when I have 2 lights shining on me in my living room. Perfect, I've got that preset. You can tweak it, but you've got it preset and it gives you a good place to start. Excellent point, Jeff. Question number 8. Josh Sagacity. Or Sagacity, Sagacity, Metropolis. Please, I want a helping hand for my upgrowing movie production. Please, my email address is, all right, listen, with all due respect. We're taking questions here. I don't know if I can help you build your empire right here, right now. but I appreciate the question. Question number 9, the spiritual center. Hi, Daniel. I'm struggling with importing a project and it's saying it's not in that folder. When I search for my computer, it says the files are empty, even though they look like they're still there. I did 9 readings yesterday, the whole work, but okay. Please help. Let me offer you a few things. There's one thing I really want you to be aware of. Let me bring my whole screen capture back over, because I've seen a few people run into this. Make sure you know where your stuff is, right? It's really important to know where all your files are. Another thing is be important to make sure you know that you're using file types that Filmora supports. Filmora does not support every type of file. Some of the iMovie files from filming on your iPhone don't always necessarily do well with Filmora, so you have to make sure you're using file types that it can recognize. And when you import, so let me show you an import window. See down here? Let me see if I can show you. Can you see? Let me go in the upper left screen. When you import, click here, this little drop down, and make sure it's set for all files or all supported files. Because if it's set for just image files, see how I have 2 different things here? If I go just image files, it could change that. It could change that. If I'm looking for just all audio files, did you see how that smiley face just went away? It's not an audio file. So depending on if I'm looking for all supported files, there's the smiley face. If I have it set for just audio files, that smiley face is not an audio file. It won't show me it in the import window. So make sure that's set properly. Another thing you want to do, this is while we're here, I've had some of these issues with my own stuff, and some creators ask me about it. If you film footage and you name your files, a lot of these are just preset names. If you've created a project and you've named your footage something, say it's My Day at the Beach, and you have another piece of footage that is not the same, but it is also named My Day at the Beach. If you have your proxy settings, your proxy files right here up in File, Preferences, and under Performance, if you've, let me scroll out here so you can see everything, whole screen. Give me 1 second, guys. Whole screen capture. If you have created multiple files with the same name, even though they're different files, and you have created a project whereby Filmora has made a proxy file, a smaller file that it can reference while editing, if it has the same name, Filmora can get confused. And the way to get around that is to hit this clean button right here. This will automatically clean all the saved files, and it'll start you again. You can hit yes. And the reason I want to point that out, because if this has ever happened to you guys, let's say you bring in a piece of footage, and it looks like it's in there, but then you hit play, but as you're hitting play, it's like a different piece of footage is playing. And you're like, wait a minute, why does that look like a completely different piece of footage? I have my new footage in, but I hit play and it feels like it's playing a piece of completely different footage that I filmed 2 weeks ago. It's because Filmora is remembering the proxy file. You have them named the same, and Filmora hasn't deleted the reference file. So you have to make sure if you're naming your footage, or if your camera is naming them similar. Sometimes every time you delete your SD card or whatever you're filming with, or wipe out your phone storage, and you start fresh, it'll start the first piece of footage 0001. And you bring it in, Filmora's already made a proxy file for 0001, and it thinks it's the one it already has on file, and it starts playing the wrong image. Clean out your proxy files under Preferences, File, Preferences, Performance, clean out the proxy files, and you won't have that issue. That's another way sometimes it doesn't recognize things. Does that make sense? I hope so. Yeah. Jay Lippman, yeah, Filmora has been using proxy files since Filmora 9 was introduced. It's the reason we don't have the render button right now. But I think I can tell you, I think we've all talked about this, and I think Filmora has mentioned it. I'm using the new beta test of 9.2. The render button's there. It's there. It's coming back. It's going to be here end of the summer, and I don't know exactly what they just said. End of the summer. That, I think, about 8 weeks. Watch out for it. There's going to be a new version. The render button's coming back. The problem was new Filmora 9 has all these different tracks, and to have to render every single one of them was like a workhorse. It used to have to render one main file, maybe a few picture-in-picture. Now it has to render up to 100 tracks. And it was a very difficult option for them to figure out how to get it to work well, right? Because we're talking about a software that's supposed to run well on smaller computers and not charge a bazillion dollars, and it's not supposed to shut your computer down. So that is what Filmora has been working on. You're going to get the render button back. In the meantime, it uses proxy files. It doesn't use them on export. It just uses them while you're editing, and you can set that under the File tab. That's why I say a lot of people, sometimes they're lagging out because they're pushing their computer too hard. Set the proxy file size. Filmora will sit there and edit with a proxy or smaller size file, and once it's figured out what you want to do with it, on export, it inserts the full size file, the full resolution file, and exports that way. And the word on the street is, it's still going to do that. I think the next version will have not only proxy files, but the render button as well. So we might have a real monster on our hands that can really move more quickly than some other pieces of Filmora software has in the past, because we're going to have the ability to really control the file sizes we're working with and we're exporting. Very cool stuff. I tell you, it's fun. It's going to be fun. Jay, you haven't used Filmora since Filmora 7. It was nuts. Yeah, you remember, I always tell everybody, any version of Filmora, if you have a license, applies all the way through the latest version. So if you use Filmora 7 and you still have a license, download Filmora 9. The same license applies. I will say, because 9 was such a big change from 8, you can't just go into the software and go check for update. You actually have to go to the website, click on download version 9, let it overwrite your software. It does save your project files, but I always recommend backing them up anyways. And then you'll just have to go up into the help tab and reactivate it using the email that you purchased the license with, and your license applies. No more charges. Whatever license you have applies to the newest version, whether you're on 7 right now and you want to switch to 9, 7, 8, 9, all the same license. Whatever you paid applies all the way through. The only one that is different is Pro. Filmora Pro is a different software, requires a different license. And Filmora Pro, I've reminded everybody, is not an upgrade of Filmora 9. It is a different software designed for people who like HitFilm, DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro. It works a different way. It's set up a different way. It's not that super fast ease of use. It's more in depth. It does different things differently. It's set up differently. It's for people who tried 9 and didn't like it. They wanted something different. So they tried to give people more of that feel. Better? No, different. If you like 9, don't feel like, oh, I got to get Pro. Don't. If you like 9, I use 9. 9 is my daily driver, and I have licenses for both. I hope that made sense. Nivan Harihar, hello from India. Hello from New England. Nice to see you, my friend. Next question. I've got questions in the, let's see, we're on number 10. Wanted Gaming. How do I advance my transition overlays between two clips? How can I advance my transition overlays between two clips? I don't understand the question. How can I advance my transition overlays between two clips? We've talked about this before. You can grab them by either end and shrink them. You can grab the ends and expand them and shrink them. That speeds them up. But advance them between two clips? I think that's what you mean, because I don't know how it's between two clips. So I'm going to just show this quickly so that we're all on the same page. Whole screen capture. Let's go over here. Let's say we have two clips. These are just footage. I mean, these are just images, but for today's purposes, pretend these are two pieces of footage, even though it's just images. Here's two, and let's say you bring down, let me make this a little bigger so you can see what's happening here more. Okay, here's two pieces. I got a smiley face and a skateboarder. If you clicked up in the left on transitions, and let's say, I'm going to use the search bar up here. I'm going to click on dissolve, DIS, and let's say I brought that down. It's now technically between these two images. Because this is a very small piece, it's going all over the end, but you can left click on it and you can shrink it. So that makes this happen faster. That means my dissolve will be faster. I can grab on either side too. Left or right will do the same thing. I can stretch it. I can move it forward. I can make it go into the next clip, which has a slightly different effect, but in terms of stretching it, if you grab either end, that will expand it, make it happen faster or slower. If that's what you meant by advancing in between, that's how you do it. Just grab the end, left click, hold, and stretch it. That'll make the transition happen slower or faster, or or, you know, stretch it out, make it happen longer over a longer period of time. That's how you do it. Let me come back to you. Live webcam. Boom. There you are. All right, next question. I hope that answered your question. The language is a little bit weird. Ed, did you have I answered your question? I don't know. Do you have a question in there, Ed? I don't know. I'm just reading. I'm just getting through it, Ed. Let's see. That was question number 10. Let me go to question number 11. Says, Arjamisan. How do you add sharpness to your project? Really easy. Let's do that. I'll show you how. Well, let me make sure I explain this right. You can add sharpness to individual images. Just like when we did color correction, when I was showing you the other color correction. Let me get this transition out of here. If you double left click on, this is a smiley face footage, but it's just an image, but let's call it footage. If this was your footage, up in the upper left where it says image, you'll see this menu below it. See this auto enhance? This is the very bottom. Let me see if I can get the upper left screen capture. Here is the very bottom of the image tab. See this? Auto enhance. Turn that on. You check it, that activates it, and then you have the amount of how much more crispness or clarity you want to add to it. Be careful with this. It can make your footage really grainy if you go too high. But if you have something that's just kind of a little fuzzy and you want to just make it a little crisper, this is how you do it. Right there. Boom. And it auto applies. Another thing I should tell you, I think you can do it with this. Let me double check. Let's find out. I'll learn right with you. Sometimes, let me cut up this footage into a bunch of different pieces. You can, down here, highlight. You can click, hold the shift key on your keyboard, and click other pieces, and now they're all highlighted. Let me see. I've got my whole screen. Hold on. Let me do this again. I'm not letting you see everything. Let me see if you can see it now. Okay, so I brought down a bunch of footage. I hope I didn't make that hard to watch. I brought down some other footage. I cut this up, right? Now you can see everything. If I left click, if I hold shift, it'll let me grab the ones to the right of it. Also, if I hit control. So now these are all highlighted. A lot of times what you can do is double left click and attach and change multiples. It won't let me do it with the image color. It'll let you do it with transitions, and it'll let you do it with effects. I can add multiple effects to many pieces. So it looks like, because I don't usually do them all at once, so it looks like one at a time you'd have to do, yeah, double left click, go to the image tab, auto enhance, set it up here. Okay, that'll make it more clear for you. Live webcam, let me come back over. I hope that answered your question, my friend. The next one we want to talk about. Ed, go hang up some laundry. Next question is, let's see, question number 12. Oop, I went one too far. Teddy, how to move to follow the face on one picture. That's what we just talked about. He's asking about motion tracking. That was the thing we talked about earlier in the stream. There is no motion tracking feature. You can do it frame by frame, overlay. If you reference earlier in the stream, I talked about how to do that, but you have to do it frame by frame. It is possible. It's just tricky. Question number 13. From Talented Boys. Sir, can we change the color of a specific part of an image? Beginning part of the stream, I absolutely did that. In the HSL, you can pick red, green, blue, and you can grab that one color and you can intensify it without bringing everything up. Saturation is all the colors, but the HSL, hue, saturation, and the luminosity, or the brightness really, the lightness, individual color, right there. You can grab it. We were talking about that. I'll show you. Let me show you one more time just so you know where it is. I'm going to go upper left screen capture here, over to here, and here is, if I double left click on any piece of footage, it opens up these sections. Let me double click on that again. Up here in the left, click on color, and then click here on advanced. And let me open up the mid screen, center screen capture. Here is what's opening up, and under HSL, you'll see these individual colors. That's how you bring each one up. Click on it, and you'll have controls for the hue, the saturation. If this was, let's say this blue in the sky, I wanted to crank it and go like, can we get that to look like super blue somehow? Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find the blue that's in that screen and pop it. It's a weird blue. It's having trouble. But you can grab one color. What's more? Let me see what else I've got. He's got some yellows going on right there. It's grabbing more of the colors in some of the other portions. But yeah, you can individually grab each color and control that clip and change whatever you want happening in each part of that clip right there. I hope that I'm moving my screen around a lot. I'm sorry if it's not always centered properly. But yeah, HSL, that's individual color bands. Let me quickly check over here. One more question in here, number 14. Let me see. Well, this is Ajima-san. When you're applying color correction, do you have to do that to each piece of footage, or can you apply it to all of your footage? If it's cut up, you have to do them individually. But like I said, I usually bring all my footage in at once, color correct it, then start editing it. Color correct first, then chop it up. Because as you chop it up, the color correction will stay attached to each piece as it's broken apart. Or if it already has been filmed, like you filmed it, stopped, filmed again, stopped, it isn't one stream, bring it in, create your color correction, save it, like I showed you earlier, as a preset, and then just apply the preset. Go in, open up the color, hit the preset, drop it onto that. Now your preset from one is applied to the next. Kind of easy. Next question. Kerwin, can I do the same thing in Filmora Pro? Today I'm not talking about Filmora Pro. It's a different setup. It's not the same. You can do similar color correction, but it's not anywhere near the same. Pro is a different software. It's not an upgrade. They have very little in common, and the way you have to access all the features is very different. So today we're sticking with Filmora 9. But I will do more Filmora Pro stuff in the future. I've been asked a lot, and I have so many questions that it's like I try to catch up. But I will do more Filmora Pro. Most people are using 7, 8, or 9, so that's why I tend to do more of that. Burke makes stuff. Would you have to go in and edit each clip individually as a way to edit them all at once? We just covered that again. So yeah, unfortunately, if they're all cut up, you can't just grab it all and color correct unless it's one big piece at once, and then you cut it up. Use the save as a preset and go back in and apply your preset. So it's still not as fast as I'd like it to be. Be great if you could grab all of them and just attach it to it. Maybe there is a better way. I haven't found it yet. Maybe in an upcoming update, you'll be able to do that. I've asked about being able to tag multiple things and control them all at once. If I find out there's a better way, I'll let you know. But for right now, preset, if it's multiple different clips, is the best way to save it and apply it to the next piece. Got that? Cool. Next question. Ed, flashing your pan. Does Filmora 9 use the same license as Filmora Pro? We've covered that. 2 different pieces of software. If you have a license for Filmora 7, 8, or 9, they all apply. Pro is a different piece of software. You have to buy a separate license for that. Ray Eden, World of Magic, can you show the copy paste effect feature? I use it all the time when color correcting. I do the save. Maybe you know something I don't. Copy paste effect feature. Oh, I haven't used copy paste in color correct. I do the save and I apply it. Maybe you do it a different way. That's possible. And we may be talking about the same thing. I just save it to a preset and then I can just load it in. So when I go to the next one, there is an effect. You know, let me see. Maybe that's what he's talking about. Let's try it his way. He may be pointing out the fact that, let me show you this way. Hold on. Let me get my whole screen, because maybe he knows a shortcut that I don't usually use. Whole screen capture. Let's see if it does it. Let me get rid of all this, because maybe he gave us something that I don't usually do. Let me bring in a piece of footage, skateboarder. Let's cut it in half. Let's go up to the advanced color correction. Let's throw the tint way off. Let's totally change the color of it so that there's no doubt we've messed with them. Make them very purple, make them very vibrant, make them very saturated, and okay. You can right click and see down here. Let me see if you can see, if I can get a closer, lower left. Can you see the pop-up? There is a copy effect that I do use for effects, if there's effects on this. Let's see if it uses this and puts it onto here. That might be an easier way to paste it over. Let's go paste effect. He's absolutely right. That's great. We just learned a new tip from the community that I don't usually do. I got to give credit. Ray Eden. So Ray does it this way. Whatever's put it onto your one piece of footage, he goes down to the lower left, hits copy effect, and then grabs the new piece of footage, highlights it by clicking on it, and then puts paste effect. Let me try one other thing. I learned from the community too. That's why I have you guys around. I want to see, can we do that to multiples? Because that was the other question. So let me go split. Let's learn. We're all learning together right here. Let me split this up into many pieces. This one is this one still purple? Yes, this one's purple. And all these other pieces, oops, let me see. Let me get full screen. Let me go back to whole screen capture. All right, so this is what Ray Eden said to me was, you put the effect on there. Let me see if I can highlight. See how this first one's very purple up top? I'm going to go over, I'm going to left click on the next clip, hold shift, go to the end. So I've highlighted the next 4. These are all now highlighted. And let me see if I can do paste effect. That one's purple. That one's purple. That one's purple. That one's purple. Shout out to my man Ray, who just showed us a faster way to copy and paste all of your color correction across multiple pieces of footage. Pretty cool, huh? This is why I have a community. This is why I tell you guys, I'm learning just like you. I tell you the things that I figured out, but I'm learning just like you. Just when you think you know it all. Were you guys here? Did you see my other video where Franklin, it was something I'd used once or twice. I didn't even think of it. He was like, oh, you can insert a piece of footage in the middle of a whole bunch just by going up to the top left, clicking on it and hitting insert. I'm like, oh yeah. We'd never talked about it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. That is faster. So shout out to, I have to say it again, Ray Eden, World of Magic. That's the best way to take your color correction and apply it across multiple pieces. I want to show you one other trick because I want to make sure that this makes sense too while I'm here, because that would mean that this other thing works the same way. I want to make sure it makes sense for you. Okay, let's see. Can you see? Let me do an undo and let me pull that off. Okay, so let's say you had your whole footage cut way up. Let me put a few more slices. And let's say that you wanted to apply that first color correction here, not to all of them. You wanted the first one, the third one, and the last one. Let's see if this works. First one, I'm going to left click on it. I'm going to hold the control button on my keyboard. It's the lowest left. That will keep this highlighted. I'm going to go to the third, and I'm going to click on that. It will skip the middle one. If I'd held shift, it would do all the pieces in between. But I'm going to hold control, do the third, and now I'm going to hold control still and hit the last. So I have the second, the third, and the last piece highlighted. Let's right click and see if it'll do paste effect. Now the second one is color corrected to that same preset. This one isn't. Third one is. Fourth one isn't. Fifth one isn't. Sixth one is. Nice. Nice. Community in action. So there's a way, if you have multiple different, like maybe you went from different pieces and you wanted to have, I just want to use this color correction on the third, the fifth, the sixth, because maybe they jump between different types of footage. We just found a faster way to do it. Thank you, Ray. Good tip, pro tip. Shout out to Ray. Let me quickly check what else we got in here for questions. How cool was that, huh? I love learning. I'm just like you guys. When I learn something, I'm like, I'm so excited. That's the most awesome thing in the world. But I've done so many things. It's the things people say to me, like, oh yeah, I knew that one. So that was a good one. I did not know that one. Thank you, Ray. Let me take a look at the questions again real quickly. I love it. I love it when you guys jump in and show me stuff. That makes me so happy. That shows me how hard you guys are out there working, and I love seeing you guys out there creating. Burke makes stuff. If you use a white card, can that be applied to the whole video at once, or must it individually be done in each clip? Well, we just learned you can have your settings, copy it by right-clicking on the one clip that you got corrected, hit copy effect, and then choose the other sections and paste it. So Burke makes stuff. We just learned you can apply it wherever you want to apply it, pretty simply. Love it, love it, love it. I love that. I'm so excited by that. Team Perez. Team Perez! Well, I haven't seen Team Perez in a while. If I use Filmora as a photo editor as seen today, which will be the best settings to save it for a great quality photo? There's a few things you want to know about setting up Filmora and to make it look right. Let me jump over to a full screen one more time here. There's 3 areas that control everything the way it looks. When you bring some footage in, if this is footage up here, first of all, you have to make sure that, let me go upper left section, that your footage is high quality, high resolution. Here's the only piece of footage I have. It's one from, we brought in a little bit, this dolly zoom. If you right click on it and go down to properties, it'll show you exactly what the footage looks like. Let me go back to center screen, because that is in the center. And it will show you the file size, the duration, the code. It'll show you the sample rate, the bit rate, the frame rate. It'll show you what size resolution. You can learn everything there is about that clip. So you always want to make sure that the clips you're bringing in are in high resolution, high definition to start with. The next thing you need to know is when you bring those down into the main timeline, it'll usually open up a window that will ask you, would you like to set this project to that specific footage? But up in the upper left under File, you can open up Project Settings, and here's what it'll tell you how your overall project is set. Let me go back to center. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. Here's your project. It'll open up this. So File, Project Settings, and here you can set the aspect ratio. 16:9 is the widescreen. That's typical what we upload to YouTube. 19, this is 1080, but you could set that all the way up to 4K, right? And then you can set the frame rate here too. That's your project frame rate. So that's what we're working with. The last step is when you click up here, and let's say you brought your footage down, and the last step in that equation is when you go to export. You click on this green button, export. This is really important too. You want to make sure it's still reading this footage, that's why it's going slow. You have settings right here when you go to export. And in those, you can set the resolution, you can set the frame rate, you can set the bit rate. Those are the three things you need to make sure are all in alignment when you are trying to make high resolution videos, images, pictures. The original needs to be high res, the project needs to be set for high resolution, and the export needs to be set for that higher resolution too. Do all three things like that, and you'll get phenomenal, crisp, wonderful looking video or pictures when you export. Cool? Man, I'm learning so much today. I'm psyched. You guys are awesome. Let me do one more thing here. Let me go to the next question. I got number 21, and that's from Tanya. Hi, Daniel. I'd like to ask if it's possible to remove any background from video in Filmora. Maybe not a good example, but like to remove background in Photoshop. There's no specific remove background button. Like I couldn't just take a picture of me and have the guitar and everything else go away. Not in moving footage. You have to do all that stuff, either green screen. That's why we use green screen. I've got a bunch of tutorials where I film, I show you how to film in front of one color, usually green, and then I use the chroma key feature to remove the green, and then it will show anything underneath it. If I stack my footage up, if I put me with a green background and underneath that footage in my timeline, I have a picture of the Sahara Desert, it'll remove the green, it'll leave me in, and then it'll show the Sahara Desert and make me look like I'm in the Sahara Desert. I've got a ton of videos doing this. I hung my son off a building. I did that. I didn't really, but in the, for the effect. I've done a lot of them. I did newsroom ones. I've shown how to really use chroma key features and different tools to have that remove the background and have a different background show up. But just simply like photoshopping it out, no. Especially not, because again, that would be motion tracking. It would need to follow you as you moved and work with you, and Filmora doesn't do the motion tracking for that. But it does do color removal, single color. So if I had just a blue background or a red or a green, yes, I can. It will remove one color with the chroma key feature. And I have plenty of videos on that, so feel free to jump around the channel, or you can ask me in the comments section afterwards, and I'll make sure I post you some links if you have trouble finding them. Ryan A. Raymond, as someone who has never done video editing, what 5 basics should I learn in order to be able to repurpose my live video recordings? My live video recordings, what basics should I learn? Make sure I'm answering this question properly. As someone who has never done a lot of video editing, what are the 5 basics I should need to learn to be able to repurpose my live video recordings? Okay. So you're kind of asking me if I just set up and started filming, whatever that might be, even if I'm like right now, what should you learn to do? I'm breaking some of those rules right now. Make sure that you try to set up your scripting and everything ahead of time. You know your structure. Don't go in and just begin filming a bunch of stuff and hoping somehow you'll put it together later on, because it becomes very disjointed. And if you don't have a structure, you've seen this a million times when major motion pictures get made. They'll film the ending of a movie first, the middle of it last, and the beginning of it second, based on timing and location and how things work out, because they have a very well orchestrated script and idea of what they need to shoot, what the scenes are, what needs to be captured. That's what I would tell you about live. Make sure you're capturing things that make sense to be edited. Because if it's just a bunch of junk that doesn't really work together, now you're trying to repurpose something that doesn't make sense. So make sure you have some sort of scripted ideas of what you want to hit. Lighting, super important. My lighting's been way off. I had a really bad stream on TubeBuddy things were crashing, and I haven't corrected everything for it. We went kind of live last minute today. Make sure your lighting's really good. If your lighting is good, it's much easier to fix things later in post. Make sure your sound is really good. Sound is one I've been waiting to hit on. Filmora has very basic sound options where you can EQ stuff and do things, but most of my sound that I capture when I do my regular videos, I take it to different software and I completely process it using compression, EQ. Sometimes I'll add reverb, different effects, multi-band compression to really make it sound. A lot of people have said to me like, wow, man, sometimes your vocals sound like you're like a radio announcer. Like, well, it isn't me. It isn't. I wish I sounded like a radio announcer, but it's mostly I'm learning how to control the overall mix and effects, the mastering of that audio. So when I use it and I bring it back into Filmora, it's very processed. I've taken a lot of breaths out. I've removed mistakes. That basic editing is huge, knowing when to cut out what you don't need. And too many people leave too much stuff in. They just keep going on, and it's like you're losing the audience. Take the stuff that's important, leave that in. What doesn't need to be in a video, edit it out, and then try to keep it moving. That's the best thing I can say. Keep it smooth, keep it transitional, have it make sense and have a flow. Yeah, absolutely, Ed. Audio is so important. I would rather watch a video that sounded great, but the video was a little off, than something that looked great, but the sound was bad. Audio just beats you up. It really does. Unless you're someone who likes using closed captions and the audio doesn't matter, which is possible. You may be hearing impaired, or you just may be someone who likes to not keep the volume up, and at work or on a train and you just want to read along. That's true too. But audio is huge. You can make the same video look professional, because if the audio gets better, people automatically start seeing it like it looks better, even though it's the exact same audio. Video clip, improve the audio, and it automatically makes the video feel like a more professional video. And I'm going to be doing some tutorials on how you can use a lot of live, free, downloadable software to improve your audio, because I think Filmora is a little bit lacking, and I want to show you guys some of the stuff that I do that doesn't cost you anything, to be able to take your audio, really dial it up, sweeten it, and bring it back in and use it in Filmora again and go, all right, that's going to make my content better. I just made the audio better. I'm going to be showing you more on that. Can I do a video just on the voice vocals? Absolutely. Yeah. I use a software called Reaper with a bunch of VST plugins. When I sit and explain it, you'll go, oh, well, that makes sense. And most of the stuff you can get no cost or low cost. So I'll definitely do that. We're getting into the questions here. Number 23. I don't know how to pronounce it. COUB. Coab mashups. Why do people complain? Where's the render button? Do we need a render button in Filmora 9? I don't seem to need it. No, you probably have a computer that is designed to handle it's up to system specs or exceeds them. I don't miss the render button either, because I built a custom 4K editing computer, which I'll talk about again sometime too. I did that for under $900. And it runs fine. It runs Filmora great because it's a really well-built computer designed to handle video editing. A lot of people have computers that are right on the fringe or below the system requirements, and it starts lagging and they start freaking out because Filmora 8 ran okay on their computer, but then they updated. The new version needs a little more power, and their computer doesn't quite meet the system requirements, or it's on the edge. Like, it meets the requirements, but it doesn't meet the requirements for a high definition editing, and it starts to run into issues. And that's why people miss the render button, because it takes all those files and compresses them so they can work easier. Like we talked about, the less your video editing software has to work, the quicker it can move. And the render button helped that. It helped make things be smaller, condensed, and it allowed computers to work easier. So I hear you. I like the render button, even though I have computers that can run it. It was nice to have it. Just made things move smoother. It didn't put so much stress on your system. So, like I said, it is coming back. It is coming back. So, Not that long. Like I said, I think 8 weeks. They've been saying the end of the summer, so 8 weeks. Hopefully, we'll see it. And I'm playing with it now. It's looking good. The new version still is crashing. They're working out the bugs. They're just trying to get all that stuff fixed. Texan Fox Gaming. Can you make a tutorial that shows how to create the intro to Game of Thrones? I would love to create that for a game I am playing to use as my intro. I love doing intro stuff. For me, it's about if a lot of people want to see it. If I started seeing that there was an opportunity, a lot of times I'll have someone come in and ask me to do one thing. Can you make this one video because I need it? If it only serves a couple of you, I tend not to do those. I'll talk about it in live streams if it's not too complicated. If I see that there are many people in my target audience that want to know that information, I'll make those videos. And it's not because I don't want to make every video, but I get thousands of requests. So I have to find the ones that the most amount of people seem to want to learn and that I think really could help people out. And those are the ones I'll make. So let me look. I'll put it on the list. I'll absolutely put it on the list. And if it looks like something that people want to see, I'll do it. I'm in. So yeah, I'll add it. Absolutely. All right. Next question. Number 25. Chicks with Dixon. Love this name. I might be late for this. I tried to change effect color and I couldn't get it to work. Could I make a blood splat color green? Yes. If you isolate the individual layer of a blood splat, like I showed at the beginning, if you're overlaying the blood splat, you'll have a much better chance of doing it. And I'll show you this real quickly because we're talking color correction today. So let's do that. Let me get the whole screen here. If I can find it. Whole screen capture. Let's go over. Let's go up here. Here I have just some footage, right? Maybe this will work with this guy. Let me bring down that smiley face. Let's say that was a blood spatter. It's over my image, right? So you could get a PNG. A .png image means there's no background. So you can get blood spatter effects in .png and you can put them in. If you double click on it, you can go into the advanced section and let's see if we can change the color of this yellow smiley face. I bet we can. I bet we can probably. I'm making it more green. Now he's orange. Let me see what else I can do with him. Let me go right into the straight color section. Let me bring up the saturation a bit and the vibrance. I'm going to go down to the let me go down to the HSL. That's the individual colors. Here's the red. Let me pump the reds up on them a bit and let me pull the luminescence back. And okay, we just changed color. Can you see? So that was a yellow smiley face that I just changed, and let me see if I can go back to yellow here. Let me see where my undo is not kicking in. Undo. It took them out completely. Sorry. But you saw what happened. I was able to just take it, that one layer, and bring them back in. And you can see that I've changed that HSL completely, right? I've made that yellow smiley face red. So yeah, you can absolutely do it. It's better if you do it as a layer. Layers work better. So if you had a blood spatter that you had it as an overlay, main footage, PNG, and it was a blood splatter like on a window or something, and put it on there just the way I put that smiley face onto mine, absolutely. Totally change the color. Thank you for the question, Chicks with Dixon. Love that name. Annis. I need to know, does Filmora make such an awesome cinematic videos? Because right now I'm new on Filmora. I'd like to make real estate videos. And does it do a good job? So my question is, can I make professional videos on it, like making a short film? Will it be as good as Premiere or Filmora Pro? It will be as good as Filmora Pro because the export features are just as good. Will it be good as Premiere? It's as good as you are. It's you. One thing I really want to stress is I think sometimes people think that the software does the work for them. If you've ever sat and played with a really advanced software, it's a ton of learning. Most people go, oh, I'm going to get Premiere Pro because it does stuff that Filmora doesn't. You're right. It's a lot more expensive. You need a much better computer to run it, and you're going to spend 15 times longer trying to learn how to run it. And I say 15 as an understatement because there's so many features. It's so advanced. It's not Filmora. Filmora is designed to be simple and put out high quality finished product without all the crazy bells and whistles. It does a lot. Every video on my channel was edited with anything about Filmora, was done with Filmora. So you can see all the effects I've done. I've done imitations of the Marvel disappearing effect. I've done ghost effect. You've seen them all. I've done all kinds of effects with Filmora 9. So the better you are as an editor, the better your finished product will be. The better you film to start with, the better the footage will look. Don't expect a software to make something great. It's not like I can go buy Pro Tools, the audio software, and suddenly I'll be a great musician because I had the right software. It's all about what you put into it. Can Filmora handle high, advanced, great looking footage and make it into great movie-esque type of footage? Yeah, I don't, it depends what you want. If you're trying to do a special effects film, you'd be limited. If you're trying to basic edits with all the things that are really important to most cinematic films, absolutely. I'm going to do another live stream that show you how to use like light blurs, cinematic leaks. You can actually get all that effect of like sunlight glaring off of your camera lens that didn't really happen in your footage, and you can add it in and get that cinematic, really panned effect where things glisten and glow. There's a lot you can do with Filmora. So yes, my answer is yes. Is it as good as Premiere Pro? No. Is it as good as Filmora Pro? It'll give you the same output, just different features. So if you want to make movies, get Premiere Pro. But it sounds like you are a real estate person making real estate videos. I think Filmora 9 is probably your best bet. You're going to find it's an easy learning curve. You'll be able to make great videos, and the better you film and the more you learn how to edit, the better your finished product will be. Question number 27. Burke makes stuff. One more time. I get complimented on my audio, but to me it sounds crappy. When I'm on camera, I use a wireless mic to set up my camera, but I'm using a separate mic for voiceover portions. The difference is how they would sound drive me nuts. Please advise. I'm going to cover this, man. I'm going to do an audio video about audio and show you the tools I use that you can get your hands on today, download, no cost. Some of them are no cost and have really long trial periods, like really long, like they're paid software, but they never shut you down. You can kind of keep using them. I'm not saying to do that. I pay. When I find software that I like, I pay for it. But I have some great pieces of software I'm going to show you how to use. I was going to do some stuff on Audacity because I think some of you guys have used Audacity for audio before. It's too limited. It doesn't do enough. And I was going to do some videos on it, and I was really beating my head. Like, I know a lot of people use Audacity, but I'm going to show you a program called Reaper. And I'm going to show you where to get free effects that you can put in, VST effects that equalize, reverb, compression, noise gates, de-esser, noise reduction, stuff that you can get all of this stuff for free. And I'm going to show you how to take your audio with a decent mic. This is just an okay mic. This is an Audio Technica AT2020 that I bought a decade ago. I think when I bought it, it was like $175. I think they're under 100 now. And I'm going to show you how to take some real basic stuff, whatever you're using, even if you're just recording audio from your phone. I'm going to show you how to process that and make it better. All right? Because I think that's important. We need to do an audio. We need to do some work on audio. We talk a lot about structure, but improving audio is huge. And I'm going to show you ways to do that without breaking the bank or having to open up your wallet really huge. Because everybody can buy expensive stuff. I want to show you how to find the real cool stuff that I use that's like either no cost or barely any cost. All right? That sound good? All right, listen, I think we've got through all the questions today. I'm sorry that I came in last minute here and it was a bit of an unannounced stream. I hope that answered your questions today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I love you guys when you show up and ask questions. Your questions are great. Thank you so much for all the tips today, the things I've learned. Love that. I love when I learn. And listen, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I want you guys to have a fantastic rest of your week. I'm off to VidCon next week. Maybe you'll hear from me while I'm there. But other than that, we'll be right back at this the following week. I love you guys very much. Peace. Have a great day.